On the morning of June 6, 1944, as the largest amphibious invasion in history crashed against the fortified coastline of German-occupied France, a single transmission cut through the static of chaos. Red Dog 1, this is Able Company. We are pinned down, taking heavy fire. We can't hold. The message was brief, fragmented, nearly lost beneath the deafening roar of artillery and the shriek of incoming mortar rounds. It came from Omaha Beach, specifically from the Dog Green sector, directly below the bluffs guarded by the German 352nd Infantry Division. The men transmitting that call belonged to the U.S. Army's 116th Infantry Regiment, part of the 29th Infantry Division. Within hours, most of them would be dead. And yet, what happened in those desperate minutes would help turn the tide of D-Day itself. To understand that final radio call, we must go back to the planning rooms of England in early 1944. Operation Overlord, the Allied invasion of Normandy, had been years in the making. Under Supreme Allied Commander General Dwight D. Eisenhower, nearly 156,000 troops would land across 5 beaches: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. Omaha was assigned to the USV Corps under Major General Leonard T. Jarrow. The 1st Infantry Division, the Big Red One, and the 29th Infantry Division were tasked with breaching the most heavily defended sector. The Germans defending Omaha were not second-rate troops, as Allied intelligence initially believed. Instead, they faced hardened veterans of the 352nd Infantry Division, commanded by General Lieutenant Dietrich Kreis. These men had fortified the cliffs with interlocking fields of fire, concrete bunkers, MG-42 machine guns, and pre-sighted artillery. Omaha Beach itself stretched roughly 5 miles long, backed by steep bluffs rising nearly 150 feet. The exits were narrow draws, easily covered by German guns. Able Company 116th Infantry Regiment, composed largely of Virginia National Guard soldiers, had trained for months for this moment. Many were farmers, mechanics, teachers, their average age 21. Captain Taylor Fellers commanded Able Company, calm, steady, respected. Their mission was clear: land at Dog Green sector, breach the seawall, neutralize enemy positions, WN-71 and WN-72, and secure an exit off the beach. Failure would bottleneck the entire invasion. Little did they know they were landing directly into the strongest concentration of German defenses on the entire Normandy coast. At 0530 hours, the naval bombardment began. Battleships like the USS Texas and USS Arkansas fired 14-inch shells into the cliffs. Destroyers added their 5-inch guns. The air vibrated with concussive force. But the bombardment was shorter than planned. Smoke and dust obscured observation. Many German bunkers remained intact. By 0630 hours, the first wave of Higgins boats, LCVPs, began their final approach. The sea was rough. Strong currents pushed landing craft off course. Several units drifted east, compounding confusion. At 0636 hours, Able Company's landing craft ramp dropped. They were immediately met with a storm of fire. MG-42 machine guns, firing up to 1,200 rounds per minute, tore into the men before they could reach the shingle. Mortar rounds from 81mm tubes exploded among the tightly packed troops. Artillery shells landed with terrifying precision. Within minutes, more than half of Able Company lay dead or wounded in the surf. The water turned red. Survivors struggled through waist-deep water under the weight of 60-pound packs. Some drowned when struck. Others dropped their equipment and crawled. By 0700 hours, Dog Green sector was a killing zone. German machine gun nests in Witterstand's Nest 71, WN-71, commanded the beach with overlapping fire. From elevated concrete bunkers, gunners observed every movement. Lieutenant James Spaulding, leading one of Able's platoons, was hit before reaching cover. He died within minutes. Captain Fellers attempted to rally survivors behind a small embankment near the seawall. He shouted over the chaos, directing men to move left toward partial cover. The radio operator, Private First Class Harold Baumgarten, struggled to maintain communication with battalion command offshore. Static filled his headset. By 0830 hours, Able Company had effectively ceased to exist as a coherent unit. Scattered survivors huddled behind obstacles. Belgian gates, steel hedgehogs, praying for naval fire support. The German defenders, approximately 100 strong at WN-71 alone, showed no sign of relenting. Every attempt to move forward resulted in devastating casualties. At 0900 hours, the tide was rising. The wounded, unable to crawl further up the beach, were slowly engulfed by water. Medics worked frantically, though many Red Cross armbands made them targets. By 1000 hours, entire sections of Dog Green lay littered with bodies. Yet small groups of Americans began inching forward. Using Bangalore torpedoes, engineers blasted gaps in barbed wire. Snipers fired from prone positions. Destroyers offshore moved dangerously close, some within 800 yards, to provide direct fire against visible bunkers. It was during this critical window that the final transmission from Able Company would be sent. At approximately 10:35 hours, inside a shallow depression near the seawall, Captain Fellers gathered the remnants of his company. Fewer than 30 men remained combat effective. A German counterattack was forming above them. Observers reported movement near trench lines behind WN-71. If the Germans pushed down the bluffs, the beachhead would collapse. Baumgarten's radio crackled weakly. Signal strength was fading. Naval gunfire support required precise coordinates, but visibility was limited by smoke and drifting sand. Artillery shells continued to land just 200 yards away. Fellers knew they could not hold much longer. A mortar round exploded nearby, wounding 2 more men. Shrapnel tore through sandbags. The men were exhausted. Ammunition was running low. Water-soaked rifles malfunctioned. Fear gripped them, and yet retreat was impossible. Behind them lay the sea. Ahead, fortified cliffs. At 148 hours, Fellers ordered Baumgarten to transmit their position. Red Dog 1, this is Able Company, Dog Green. We are pinned down. Enemy entrenched above bluffs. Heavy MG-42 fire. We need immediate naval support. Static. The reply was faint. Naval Command requested confirmation of coordinates. Fellers hesitated. The German positions were dangerously close to their own. To call fire on the bluff risked overshoot. Friendly casualties were almost guaranteed, but without it, they would be annihilated. He made the decision. Fire mission? Danger close. The next minutes felt like hours. At 11:02 hours, USS McCook's 5-inch guns opened fire at near point-blank range. Shells screamed overhead. Explosions rocked the bluffs. Concrete shattered. German return fire intensified. A machine gun burst struck Baumgarten's radio set, destroying it instantly. The final words transmitted were incomplete. We can't hold. Silence. For several minutes, Able Company was cut off completely. Smoke from naval shells provided temporary concealment. Seizing the moment, Fellers ordered a charge toward a shallow gully leading up the cliff. What happened next would become legendary. Under covering fire from destroyers and scattered riflemen, approximately 15 men from Able Company and elements of the 5th Ranger Battalion sprinted toward the base of the bluffs. Bullets snapped overhead. Some fell, but enough reached the narrow draw. Using ropes, bayonets, and sheer determination, they began climbing the steep, sandy incline. German defenders, stunned by the naval bombardment, were momentarily disorganized. By 11:30 hours, small American teams crested the bluff behind WN-71. Close quarters combat followed. Grenades were tossed into trenches. Browning automatic rifles provided suppressive fire. Bayonet charges cleared bunkers one by one. Within an hour, key German positions overlooking Dog Green were neutralized. Approximately 70 German soldiers were killed or captured. The breakthrough allowed additional waves to move inland. By 1300 hours, a tenuous foothold existed atop the bluffs. The beach, once a slaughterhouse, began to transform into a staging ground. Omaha Beach, against all odds, would not fail. Captain Fellers was later found wounded but alive near a trench line. Of Able Company's original 230 men who landed that morning, fewer than 50 were able to continue fighting by day's end. Their sacrifice had bought precious time. By nightfall on June 6, 1944, approximately 34,000 American troops had landed at Omaha Beach. Casualties were staggering, an estimated 2,400 killed, wounded, or missing. Able Company, 116 Infantry Regiment, suffered some of the highest losses of any unit on D-Day. Private First Class Harold Baumgarten survived the war despite severe wounds. His destroyed radio became symbolic of that final, desperate call. Several members of the 29th Infantry Division received Silver Stars and Bronze Stars for valor. While no Medal of Honor was awarded specifically for Dog Green that morning, the collective bravery displayed remains one of the most studied examples of small unit resilience under extreme fire. Historians agree, had Omaha collapsed, the entire invasion timetable could have unraveled. The courage of isolated groups, men who believed they could not hold, ultimately ensured that they did. Today at the Normandy American Cemetery overlooking the very bluffs they fought to seize, rows of white crosses and stars of David mark the cost. 9,387 Americans lie there, each one a story, each one a final moment. This was just one of countless untold stories from the Second World War. Subscribe to WWII Records as we continue to bring these forgotten chapters of history back to life.